Hello, good evening and welcome to my humble model railway, Bedstead Junction. Tonight we'll be looking at a couple of locomotives at least. We'll try and get as many fitted into tonight's running session, which I'm filming. Now the first locomotive you're going to see is one you may have seen in one of my previous videos. I think it was in the Welsh connection. The reason why I put it in that video is because it's called St David, obviously the patron saint of Wales, and this is a Hornby Saints class. And what we'll do is we're going to get this one underway in just a moment, and while it's going around we'll talk a little bit about her. So let's just get the controller going a little bit and we'll see if we can pull away. There we are, pull away quite nicely, and you'll see quite nicely over the points as well. And it's pulling a rake of clerestory coaches. The clerestory coaches were designed by William Dean, and they were, you may have previously seen these being put by Lorna Doone, the Dean single. Now this locomotive is very much the successor to the Dean singles. William Dean was the chief mechanical engineer of the Great Western Railway up until 1902, and then George Jackson Churchward, the designer of this particular locomotive, was chief mechanical engineer from 1902 to 1922. And these locomotives came about as a result of experiments with some drafted in French locomotives, which were the 442 configuration. In fact, a number of these were run for a while as 440 Atlantics, but it was decided in the end to go with the 460. And this is just a straightforward 460 twin cylinder design. Now the Saints classes were built between 1902, well, it was built from 1902 to 1913, and there was a total of, well, it's 76, some people say there's 76, and some people would say there's 77 built. Now whether or not the 77 includes the one which exists today, I don't know, because there has been a particular locomotive that's been rebuilt into the guise of a Saint class. But this one is St David. Now during its service, it went right through into BR service and was finally withdrawn, I believe, in 1953. It managed to cover well over 2 million miles. So a very, very good service for the Great Western Railway. Now, there is one, and like I say, there is one now in preservation. As such, it's been rebuilt. I think it was converted from a hall, and it was is now called Lady of Legend. So I want to get to see that particular Saint class locomotive. Now, this particular Hornby locomotive is tender powered, so the tender is actually pushing the motor along. But you wouldn't really know that, apart from the fact that it's got a relatively high coal load in the tender, and that's to accommodate the ring-filled motor. Now one interesting fact is that there were other Saint classes made by Hornby. But this particular one, I've got another one which is called Cleveland Court, which came out later, I think in the 1990s. This one's from the 1980s, and it's actually got more detail on it than the later one, which seems a bit strange in some ways. And here we are, our Saint class. When we just move the leaflet around, you can have a look at it. We just stop the train just for a moment, so slow it right down. There we are. It's R830 20/11/1986, 20th of November 1986, I believe that says, and that's the instruction leaflet which came with it. And there we are. That's actually on the instruction leaflet itself. It says St David, a Gita Classic to be released in 1986. And this is the one. This is a very, very locomotive. They're being promoted in this particular leaflet. We just get back underway, and you'll see this one is a very good runner. You watch it go over the, don't appear to be hesitating over the points or anything. And when Churchward became Chief Mechanical Engineer of the Great Western Railway, it was a time of great changes in many ways. It was the end of the Victorian era. Queen Victoria died in 1901, to be succeeded by Edward VII, and I believe then it was George V, followed by George VI in World War II, and now we've got Elizabeth I, our present monarch. But this was very much in the sort of Edwardian time. These started off, and they were built at Swindon. Now we're going to put her over in a minute. We'll have a closer look at her, but we might bring her into the station to have a closer look. Then we can have a look at her completely broadside. Now this is one of my, again, sort of lockdown sort of ones I bought. I bought this during the lockdown. I think I bought this in the spring of last year in 2020. It needed very, very little work to get it running well. In fact, a lot of my eBay purchases I've got on really well with. They've generally been some of them have been a little bit stiff to start with, which can be expected if they've not been run for some time, but with a bit of oil and a bit of running in, and then they're usually back on their feet again. I intend to add a loco crew in this one. If you saw my other Saints class, which was the one in BR Black, that one does have a loco crew inserted into it, and I intend to get a loco crew for this one. This is in the green Great Western livery, so it would be the livery it would have had before nationalisation. Now the next train you'll see is related to this model in more ways than one. It's related by the fact that they've got obviously the likeness of them being a Great Western engine, but also the likeness comes from Hornby as well. If we were to look across now at the one that's in the station there, that's Albert's Hall. Now what happened was, these came out in the 1966 catalogue, and I think they ran through until the early 1980s possibly. Halls in various guises. I think Albert Hall only ran to the early 70s. But then the mould and everything was adapted to make the Saint class. And so basically what you're looking at here is basically our whole class converted into the Saint, which you see going around now. Now the main differences between the two locomotives are in the cab, and we're waiting until they're both in the station and we can have a look at this and we can see. Some of you might not have seen any of my videos before, and it's the way you can always tell a college locomotive from a church ward. What we're going to do is we're going to slow her down a little bit now, bring her up to the signal. That's it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring her into the station now. Then we can have a better look at both locomotives together, and we can compare them. So a quick flick of the points, and we should be ready to run into the station. Here we are over the point without any problems at all. Slow her down a little bit now. Obviously we're getting near the end of the siding. There we are, so we're in there now, into the siding. Now I think this one just needs to come back just a tiny little bit, because the one of the hazards of having a layout like this, the loco could actually foul the main line. Now you can see the two locomotives together now. So this is the earlier Hornby model down here, Albert's Hall, from the 1960s, and then the mould was adapted to produce this particular locomotive here, which was the Saint class. And you can tell that they're two different locomotives from each other. A Churchward cab is always a smaller cab with a cutout at the back. There's no side window there, that's just a solid piece there. But the Collet cab has a side window, and it's got a bigger cab, you can see there. So the crew certainly had greater creature comforts with the Collet locomotives. The cabs were a little bit bigger. And also the differences in design as well. I mean, there's more sort of moulded on detail with the Albert's Hall. Is a much earlier model to this particular one. In fact, this one's got quite a nice lot of detail on it. The actual St David, it's got the separate sort of, I think, the brake levers on the back of the tender, on the front of the tender there. Those are actually moulded on here, but they're actually separately fitted parts on this particular one. And also the handrail is also part of the moulding. That's just painted silver. But really, when it's going round, it's hard to tell. And I think our Albert Hall is a very, very handsome locomotive. They both are very handsome. And I can always imagine what it would have been like, say, for somebody to receive something like Albert's Hall, maybe on Christmas Day or on a birthday. I mean, I didn't get into model railways until I was in my 30s, much later in later life. I didn't as a child, believe it or not. I was really into model aeroplanes, and then I didn't get into railways until I started to travel on the railways myself in connection with my work. But that's another story. But then I became interested in railways from the model railways from the early 1990s onwards. But you can imagine, you know, the delight of someone receiving a model like this, maybe on Christmas Day. I think it's a lovely locomotive. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the points, so we're going to have a little look at our Albert's Hall going out around the track. And so just bear with me just one moment. So I'm going to go forward and change the points again. I'm going to try not to knock into the tripod. It's easier said than done. There. There we are, that's the points changed. Now, Albert's Hall, that was the Hall classes were designed by Charles Benjamin Collet, who was the successor to Churchward, and he took over in 1922. Okay, so let's have a look at our Albert Hall. We'll see if we can get them into reverse, and we'll move out to the station. Now at the moment, there seems to be a slight problem there. If you just bear with me just one moment, we'll just see if we can sort out what it is. Okay. Signal signal, I forgot to change one of the points. Let's see if now the correct locomotive moves. There we are. You can see it's moving quite well. It's a little bit noisier, the model's a little bit noisier, but I've been watching videos of these, and they do seem to be a little bit noisier than the more modern offerings. You'll hear it whizzing around the track in just a moment. Right, so away we go. Hopefully. There we are. Arbor Hall. Over the points, no problem at all. These have just got pickups on the driving wheels. So you can see it's handling everything quite well. Going around my little layouts quite well here. And this is in British Rail. This is how it would have been after 1956. Now these were very, very numerous. These were designed as a mixed traffic locomotive, so they were designed to take both goods and freight. And there was, yes, there were quite a lot of these built. 250, again, I think it's either 250 or 259. I keep getting conflicting information on that, but more than 250 at least anyway. And they were built between 1928 and 1943. Now I think after then there were a number of other locomotives built. In fact there was a series of 71 modified halls, but they were different in many, many ways. Those were designed really by Hawksworth, who was the successor to Collett. And Hawksworth became Chief Mechanical Engineer, I believe, in 1943. And Hawksworth was the very, very last Chief Mechanical Engineer for the Great Western Railway before the railways were nationalised. Now this one, like I say, it's got the motor in the locomotive itself, so it's loco driven. You can see it's a lovely little locomotive. It needed a little bit of cleaning up when I bought it. It was a little bit gunged up, but then you can expect that. I mean, this model could be as old as the 1970s, I think, or even the late 60s, perhaps. And you can still get to Hornby Hall today, but obviously that's a totally different animal to this. And we'll be bringing our hall into view in just a moment for us to have a nice look from above. There we are, so you can see it from above now. Got the usual family resemblance of all the brass fittings and copper fittings on there. The whistles, safety valve cover, and then the copper cap chimney, which is a trademark of the Great Western Railway. So a very, very handsome locomotive. And from this distance, I'd say you can't really tell that those handrails are moulded on. You see the handrails just, around there, going over the top of the boiler. But I think it looks quite convincing from here. And certainly it would mean that the model would be certainly a lot more durable. Certainly has survived up until now in great condition. It's in lovely condition livery wise. In fact, both these locomotives are. The St David and the Hall class, the Albert Hall. We'll just bring it forward again. And the Hall classes were very often used to deputise where some of the more prestigious express locomotives were not available. I think some of these were kept in reserve at Reading just in case any of the castles or kings failed. And they did actually stand in and managed to keep time too as well. So they're very, very capable locomotives. Now as far as reference material is concerned, there is a book I can recommend. As always, I like to recommend a book if you want to find out more. I mean, some of you might be just interested in the models, that's fine. You enjoy running your trains, that's fine. Some of you might be interested in the actual locomotives and in many ways the historical context of them. what kind of events were taking place when these locomotives were built and being run, and what led to our railways being as they are today, as we see them today. The railways brought a very great amount of social change to our country. If you think that before, say, the 1800s, well, let's think about one scenario. The Battle of Trafalgar, that was fought by wooden ships battling it out, big wooden ships battling it out, and yet within, say, 20 or 30 years from there, you started to get steam engines appearing on our railways, starting with ones like Stephenson's rocket, and then various railways beginning to be built, and the railway mania during the Victorian times, when everybody seemed to want the railway in their town. Having a railway meant your town would have very great advantages. It would be, obviously the goods could be transported more quickly, the goods you're selling could be made more widely available, and you can get the goods which you want to buy from more places too, and things could travel more quickly. Milk could be transported. So I think before the coming of the railways in London, they kept cows in London so they can be guaranteed fresh milk. And then the coming of the railways meant that milk could be transported great distances. Now another thing which a lot of people probably take for granted today, which came in historically fairly recently, was bank holidays. And you can imagine that at the bank holidays there was no foreign travel, and this was people's chance maybe to get to the seaside for the day, and a lot of our seaside resorts on a bank holiday would be absolutely packed. And of course a lot of people took their week's holiday or their fortnight's holiday and went to places by the seaside in Britain. There was no airline travel or anything like that. So you can imagine these taking people away. In fact, summer Saturdays were the most manic on our railways, especially near where there was railways leading to the holiday resorts. So Blackpool will be packed out, and certainly down in my neck of the woods, places like Weston-super-Mare will be packed out with happy holiday makers. Now, one of the books, you might be curious about the book down there. You can see the Somerset and Dorset in colour. I didn't leave that deliberately there. I've been looking through that book today, and that's another subject, the Somerset and Dorset. Oh boy, that really is. Okay, but we got, you can imagine now maybe, it's a summer Saturday. Our railways are totally chock-a-block with engines, carriages, platforms full of passengers, all trying to get to and from their holiday resorts. The summer Saturday was the actual time of the holiday changeover. Now I'm going to take, I might take my camera off the tripod just for a moment. I know we should be focusing on the locomotives, but there's something I'd like you to see. Maybe you've not seen it before. And we'll see if we can get the camera off the tripod without causing too much disruption. Might not come off. There's going to be enough big, oh there we go, it's off. There we go. See up there? Burnham-on-Sea. That was near us. It's still a holiday resort near us. Oh, the you can see on the left is still there. You still see the occasional ship going up and down. The weather isn't like that all the time, to be truthful, but then when is it ever really? Burnham-on-Sea. By train to Highbridge and then Burnham-on-Sea. The railway poster there. Again, part of our holiday heritage, the railway posters, designed to attract the holiday makers to our British resorts and to travel by train. That was a thing. Now the rolling stock, very often we don't concentrate on the rolling stock, and I'm no expert on rolling stock, to be truthful. I mean, when I first started with modern railways, all I knew was that Great Western Railway carriages were chocolate and cream. which these are, of course, but these are very much different to each other. You've got the earlier Dean design carrossery coaches there. They were sort of a pre-war design, and these are lit by gas. That's why they've got the upper windows in the roof. And then you've got the later coaches here, which are coming through here, and these are Collett coaches. So the locomotive and the carriages are all of the same designer, or from the same designer. Now, if you are curious about these locomotives and like to know more, if you will find this book, it's worth looking out for. Brian Holden and Kenneth H. Leach. Portraits of Western 460s. All of the Great Western 460s included here, look. Saints, Stars, Castles, Kings, Halls, Granges, Manors and Counties. In fact, one of the things that first got me interested in railways was a programme presented. It was called Seaside Railways. It was presented by a railway author called David St John Thomas, and he made he did a programme about the seaside railways, and a lot of our local railways were included in this, including, you know, talking about the Great Western, and that's one of the things which inspired me to get interested in railways, especially steam engines. And in the in this particular video, if you never get hold of it, I think it's called Seaside Railways. He talked about being at Dawlish. If you ever go to Dawlish, that's a place you must visit if you're in the West Country. The railway station is right on the beach, right by the sea. So you can literally sit on the beach and watch the trains going through the platform. I mean, some go through the station, some stop, and maybe express trains they kind of whiz through, and they're literally whizzing along the seawall at Dawlish. Very nice little place, Dawlish. But and I can't help it, my eyes are drawn to the Somerset and Dorset book down there. You know, I can see it on the screen there right now, and so can you. And if you want to know more about that, I mean, I don't have any Somerset and Dorset models. I mean, I've been concentrating at the moment on Great Western. But if you want me to talk about the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway, I certainly can. I mean, I wouldn't have anything to show you as far as model railways are concerned, but certainly if you're curious about the railway, yes, I can do that for you if you wish. The Somerset and Dorset is a local railway to us, and that is a story all of its own. It really is. Now what we'll do now, we're going to wrap things up in just a few moments, and I hope there's a bit of interest. Obviously I had to think of some material for tonight, and you know, I've only got so many engines and so many carriages and so many wagons, and I'm trying to do this without maybe not repeating myself too much. But I hope this has been of interest to you tonight. And if you like what you see, press like, subscribe and ring that bell. And thank you very, very much for watching. And thank you for your interest. And good night. Thank you.